Let's go. I'm trying new audio equipment. So we're going to see how this goes. I'm going to record on here too. All right, crew. Oh, the mic is not close enough. This is what happens when you're recording. Testing. All the things to make it better. Yes, God. Mic is on. God is so good. Jesus, God is so good. It's been amazing. Amazing past week. I tried some, there's some things popping, okay? And all I gotta say is, please be consistent. I don't want to share yet, but stay tuned. Stay tuned. Jesus, I am just so thankful with what is perspiring in my life. And this episode, I am going to explore going deeper. And I'm nervous. And so I'll give y'all a little insight. So I have 2 people currently on a level of business that I'm trying to get to that are walking me through, coaching me. And it's funny, I have another friend of mine who was talking to me who listens to the podcast regularly, and she was like, I want them to know more of your story. I want you to go deeper. And then I had one coach that's like, okay, people come on there to listen to you talk about books, but they also want to get to know you. And then I have a coach about your brand. Like, your brand is going deeper. And what you're doing, you're not just selling a product, you're connecting with people. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I know, but I want it to be about the books. I don't want it to be about Sade. Like, I want it to be about the book. Sorry about the noise in the background. I want it to be about the books. At the same time, these books is what has helped me pull me through this story. And these are just icing on the cake. The basis and the foundation of what changed me is my relationship with Christ, therapy, and the books. The books are a plus, right? And I want to go deeper, but I also struggle with the connection of people in my story who have hurt me the most are the people that are closest to me. And it's family that I cannot choose. And it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack. So my vow to you, of course, is always to be transparent. And there's a level of vulnerability that I want to experience with my audience. But it's also a level of healing that I have to experience for myself. And not being so concerned on what people think, but also this thing of protecting people. But I always have this, to tell my story is for you to be a part of my story. And then it's not that I'm going to harm anyone. It's just like, this is what happened to me. You know what I'm saying? But I also want you to be aware that I'm sharing my story. But it's funny, it's like the people who be like, well, don't say this about me. And when you tell this part of the story because yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, do you even listen to the podcast? I mean, like, what's up? And then it's like, you don't want to look like the bad person, but this is what I experienced. But then there's this respect of telling your truth without affecting someone else being honest about their truth is because they're not honest about their lives. So that's where I'm at right now. But I want to open up to you more and more because my life is a testimony of what you can get through. Because you can get through anything. You know what I'm saying? And I want to make sure that I'm not coming off just surface with you guys. I want to go deeper. And it's scary. It's so scary. I'm getting choked up just thinking about how scary it is for me. And this is something that I process in therapy. And I've been told in therapy, like, your story is your story. And you cannot be so overly concerned about dimming your light if God has called you to share your story. Because my therapist faith-based. Okay? I need to check back in with therapy. I told y'all I sprinkle in and out of therapy. I pick it up and put it down. But that's not like the best practices. But also one of the struggles that I have is not struggle, but one of the things of being an entrepreneur is, you know, you get paid and you have a level, you know, you have all of everything that I do is 100% commission based. And so when I get paid from real estate checks or the stuff that comes in from the pod, I have to be strategic. And therapy is one of the important things. So I'll set aside a budget for therapy, but also livelihood. And when that budget runs out, your girl got to get to more bags to be able to pay for more therapy. Okay? So that is a transparent of what life really looks like as a full-time entrepreneur. And I know in my previous episodes, I would say enough about me, let's get into the books, but I'm realizing how these books affect me is about me, you know, and that's what I want to share. So this week's episode, we're getting into chapters 4 and 5 of the book Believe Bigger. Stage 1, the discovery stage, and then we kind of break down in chapter 5, one part of the discovery stage is identifying your rule makers. And I can't wait to get into that because it goes what my coach says, 7 layers deep to like that childhood and how those things affect us in our adulthood. And then you already know we're going to get Who Gon Check Me Boo and our first segment of the show. And then I'll give you your challenge of the week. And then we have some What Would the Crew Do advice, and I'll quote you guys out so you can go over and experience life. Okay, so Who Gon Check Me Boo God is Believing Bigger devotional journal is day 6, and it's the faithfulness of God. But the text is so when I opened up day 6, the scripture that's on there is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 24. And it reads, "He who calls you is faithful. He will surely do it." And in the text, she's talking about how we can't force it. We can only flow with it. And the question was, how are you getting in the way of what God is doing by trying to make something happen versus putting it in his hands? And the prayer was, "Lord, my hands naturally default to busyness. Remove the spirit of anxiousness from my heart so that I can rest in your timing. Align the work of my hands with your heart and plan." And after I read chapter 4 and 5, that 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 24 scripture hit me different. He who calls you is faithful, and he will surely do it. Okay, there are things that I am a recovering people pleaser, and there's things that I have done because of the expectation of what my parents thought I should do. And it goes, and we will get into this a little bit more in the episode, but identifying that the things that I did was because I got praised and affirmed with doing the things they wanted me to do based off of how they wanted me to come out. And so I had to reconnect who God was in my life to identify that I need to do what he needs me to do and not what my parents expected me to do, not what society expected me to do, and even setting aside of what I needed to do. And he needed to call me to his purpose. And whatever his calling is, that is what is faithful. And I know if he asked me to do it and he's giving me the vision, it will surely happen. And that's what I got from 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 24. And then that's the beautiful thing about scripture. You can read it at a different time in your life and it's going to hit differently. And the way that she talked about it on day 6 was she has here, give you a goal and you'll make it happen. But what if your part is letting go? Sure, it's easier said than done, but this season is more about surrender than anything else. So, we're going to talk about the discovery stage, and it's about letting go and rediscovering what you really should be doing based off what God has asked you to do and His purpose than what everybody else had told you and affirms you. Okay? So that who gonna check me, boo? God is. It was like, okay, God, you checking me to make sure I'm doing what you asked me to do. And we talk about this all the time because this is part of constantly moving forward in what He asks of us and not what anybody, even ourselves, would want us to do, which be the hardest thing. Because we like to control. And we also move off survival mode because we were blessed to be able to adapt to whatever is happening. But we also have to be like, okay, just because I've been doing this for a long time, when do I stop and move forward? But you can really only truly do that if you're constantly in connection with Christ, so you can be confident enough to go to the next level, to the next step. Okay? So yeah. Let God check your child and let His faithfulness be the sure to what you're doing. You hear me? All right. Okay. And I had to get through that. So you already, please, I'm trying to get, you already know. I feel like that's a thing. I should call that You Already Know podcast. I say it so much. But please leave a written review, 5 stars, share the pod, and all those good things wherever you get your podcast. If you can leave 5 stars, please do. On the Apple, please leave a written review. I really appreciate it. On YouTube, subscribe, watch the show, see how fly your girl looks, get into it. You hear me? And we're going to read books and be fly. Okay. Now, you can also visit the website www.thecrewbookclub.com. There's shirts, bookmarks, all those fun things. You can order the books. You'll see some other clips from me as well. And yeah, let's get into the book. Okay. Believe Bigger by Marshawn Evans Daniels. She is on point. She is so motivational. She is so awesome. I love following her and getting that inspiration. And this book was just absolutely amazing. And chapter 4, stage 1 of the purpose map is the discovery stage. And it starts on page 72. And it comes out, discovery is where the foundation of our identity gets pieced together. Values are established, boundaries are determined, our image is formed, and our beliefs get programmed. And the discovery stage, she talks about, was it on page, I'm going to skip to page 82 because it's a pretty lengthy chapter, but I want to get into, oh, sorry, not page 82. Let me go back. Page 72, it starts on. Oh my goodness, y'all. I used a different color highlighter and it's completely throwing me off. Sorry. Woo. Okay. Listen. Oh my God. I just had a blank moment. This is gonna be some editing, y'all. Okay. The discovery stage is where the foundation of our identity, page 72. As an adult, I had to discover and reestablish my values, my boundaries, and my self-image, and my beliefs. I remember being raised in a church, you know, kind of like forced to go to church. Like, girl, you better get up and go to church. I remember one time I was beaten to go to church. Like, my mama whipped me. I mean, we got into a full blown, like, dramatic fight about going to church. And I was just kind of like, I can't believe this lady is doing this right now. And I remember I was a senior in high school, and we were going to church. Now, mind you, I was kind of going and not going, but I guess this particular Sunday was a big deal for me to go. And I remember not wanting to wear a dress. I was just like, I ain't feeling it. I'm going to just throw on this pair of jeans and call it a day. And she got so upset. And it was like World War III for this moment. And I ended up going to church so upset. And I remember sitting, and my mama she used belts. She used hands. And I remember being in there and just like, you know, and I was like, this is what God is? Like, to handle me in that way and to go to church and to praise and worship as if, you know what I'm saying? Like, that just did not happen. It baffled me. And I think in that moment, I kind of questioned, is this a God that I would want to serve? And so at the end of service, I remember us being called up to be congratulated in front of the whole church about going off to college. It was me and one of my best friends. And she was going to UF, and I was going to Florida A&M University. Rattlers, we strike, and strike again. And I was like, oh, this is what this was about. It was about her getting praised as the mom whose daughter is going off to college. This wasn't about going to church and getting a word from God. This was about you looking good. You know what I'm saying? And I kind of felt like that is not the type of God I would want to serve. So in my mind, I knew when I went off to college, I wasn't going to church. Okay? And I wasn't going to feed into this image. And I felt like over time, I kind of was trying to rebel against that. But when you've been so controlled and you kind of just suck it up to survive because you want to avoid confrontation, that's what I felt like my childhood was. No one authentically got to know me and what I wanted to do. It was showing up as who they needed me to be able to survive. So I feel like as an adult, I had to go through the discovery stage of who am I? Who am I without their expectation? Now, backstory, I went off to school because I had no choice. I wanted to model. I wanted to move out to California. I had opportunities to act, to sing, to dance, to do these things, to model, to kind of curate talent, which I felt like I had because I always felt like I belonged on the stage. At the same time, God has a way of bringing things full circle. But in that moment, it was either I stay home with my parent or I go off to college, and I'd be darned, because she was married to someone that I did not get along with. And it was just tension. Like when I remember coming home and it was just always tension, and I was just so ready to go. And my mom was great. She was a great mom for what she knew, right? At the same time, I just felt like it was about image and it was about looking a certain way, and that's what it was. When we go out this door, you better pull it together, because you represent me. And I was just like, it is what it is. I'm gonna be out of here. So in that moment, I never forget, that was probably the moment that I lost what God is, because I just was like, I just cannot see that's the God that I want to serve. So going back to discovering who I am without anyone's expectations was just so important. Okay. Woo. Now, on page 82, she says, we're directed and molded without ever knowing that the purpose of working, becoming good and proficient at something is a developed wisdom that will be needed later for teaching, leading. We simply taught to provide, reproduce, then retire. We're not taught that one day our calling will call us to step up, to lead, and our season of discovery is about preparation for eventual development and a larger destiny. One day the student is supposed to become the teacher. And I didn't even realize this when I was going through well into my adulthood and rediscovering who I am by reading the books and doing the work. I never thought that I would be on here doing a podcast and masterminds to help other people come out on the other side of where they are discovering. So this is why, and so I feel like the books, between God and therapy and the books and the research that I do teaching me to become who I am, now God has blessed me with the opportunity to bring it to you all. Okay. And I'm having a moment as well, because I was telling, my coach has asked me to do something, and she was just like, do you realize your skill set and where you're at? Like, people need to hear this part so they can understand why you're so passionate about these things, because I've been through so much. All right. So becoming, what you're going through is just not about you. It's a bigger purpose. It's bigger than you. And that goes into believing bigger. Believe that what you're going through is bigger than you. So that way, when you get to the other side, you can go back and help other people. That's what it's about. And I constantly say, my life is not my life. All right. Now, we're going to get into chapter 5, because identifying your rule makers. And she says, starting on page 84, the rules are your compass, helping you navigate what to do, where not to go, and how to secure arrival at your intended destination. In this chapter, we're going to look at the rules you've been following in your life, understand how you come to internalize them, and see how you might break free from them and embrace the purpose God has in store for you. Remember, I told y'all, like, what we were taught, what I was taught is we're taught this by our parents and how we're raised, and going to church and being forced to do certain things, not because I would want to or you're trying to bring me into the light. It's like your intentions. Like, what are your intentions when it comes to doing that? And God knows that. I know some of y'all might be thinking, well, you raise a child and then she comes back too. And I get that. I understand that. But let's look at the context of, it doesn't have to come from forcefulness. It doesn't have to come from beating. It could have purely come from communicating love. Like, I felt like if my mom would have simply told me, hey, I really want you to go to church because I want to honor you and your achievement, and I want to do that with other people, I would have gladly put on the dress. I would have probably gladly went with that, not because it was this me wanting to be praised, but it was the fact you communicated to me that you're proud of me. But it came out as you beating me and forcing something because it was what you wanted instead of just simply communicating with me. You know what I'm saying? So getting into the rule maker, she breaks down these 3 rule makers, and it's the 3 primary drivers that most shape the rules we adapt and live. Affirmation. We tend to do stuff that gets us smiles, hand claps, positive attention, and praise. One of the reasons why I went off to college. Not because I wanted to, child. It was because I was being affirmed, right? Rule maker number 2, consequences. We taught to avoid risk and play it safe. And here, safe means acceptable and predictable. Graduating from school, going to college was the predictable thing to do. And it was also projection. Okay? That's a whole nother thing. I think I was seen by my mom is like, I want you to do what I didn't get a chance to do because that's what I wanted to do. So I want to make you and force you to do it and give you no other options. Okay? And I don't fault her for that because that's what she knew. In her generation, that was the thing to do. Rule maker number 3, repetition. If we experience or see something over and over, we tend to adapt the behavior or belief until it becomes a habit. Okay? One of the things I wanted to talk about was the consequences of it all. And I don't criticize my parents, like I'm 36, so the parents before me, it was like, get an education, get a good job, work for these amount of years, retire at this. But baby, nowadays we can't retire with just one job. You know? So I had to go against the grain. And a lot of times I did not get support until I was successful. It was just like, girl, you shouldn't be moving here. You shouldn't be doing this. You should stay in one spot because you have children. What type of mother are you? The judgment, because it was the fear that kept her, I feel like. It was just like, I don't want you to make the same mistakes I did. So I want to force you to do it this way because I feel like I know this is what's going to work. And then I took on that from people pleasing because one, I felt like I couldn't express myself without getting slapped in the mouth. Or I couldn't think too big because she couldn't visualize thinking that big outside. So then I wouldn't share and I would just conform. And it was just to survive. You know what I'm saying? Because my mom paid. I remember being in college and people like, oh, your mom paid for your room and board, your mom brought you a car, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, yes, she did all that, but it also comes with this sense of control. And if I continue to do these things, you got to do what I say. Or I remember when I got pregnant with my oldest daughter, my mom cut me clean off. And it was the hardest thing, but it was also the best thing because I was able to rediscover who I was and I was able to survive and to see that I could do it. And I learned not to be held pigeonholed based off of what someone does for me. There's still times that it affected me, which we'll probably tap into that. But yeah, it was this sense of control. And then I would see other people who parents wasn't so much in their life, and I see how that affected them. So it's like, at the end of the day, I feel like we all need therapy. Because all these things affect us in different ways, and we have to go to the discovery stage and find out what rules was labeled on us, you know, that were put on us, to take those labels off and rediscover who we are as adults and individuals because the times have changed. They're teaching us based on what used to work, and we're moving through adulthood on what is working, what needs to work now. And we don't even know. So when I'm conversating with my daughter, I want to acknowledge her feelings and make sure I'm hearing her. So we can have a better relationship. You know what I'm saying? So we're all learning. We all need therapy. And that's why I have the partnership with BetterHelp for this episode, because I just believe we all need it. We all need someone to talk to that's outside of our lives, to be openly and express ourselves, that can actually help us mentally get through our childhood traumas, our current traumas, our current, I want to, not current trauma, I would say current lessons. Traumas are lessons to be learned, to get through, to get moving forward. But we definitely have to acknowledge and process these traumas and not sugarcoat them or cover them up. And going to therapy has helped me with that. So check out BetterHelp. It's affordable, it's convenient. You know, you can do the survey, you can pick the therapist you want, you can see their faces, you can read about them, you can ask questions, but definitely try it. And with the partnership with the crew, it's betterhelp.com/crewlove. That's betterhelp.com/crewlove. The link will be in the show notes. I highly recommend. I don't need therapy, child, bye. Try it, and at least try it 3 times, and I guarantee you're gonna have a revelation. Now it's gonna be up to you whether you continue and want to face what you've gone through, or if you quit. I feel like a lot of people who quit therapy is because they get fearful of not going deeper. So I challenge you to go deeper. So definitely check out betterhelp.com/crewlove. Okay? Now, the challenge of the week, y'all, it's not simple. It sounds simple and I make them sound fun, but it's not. It's really, this challenge this week is, I want you to release the label that was stuck on you. Okay? On page 75 in chapter 4 in the discovery stage, she says, my point is, I learned that the people you trust may not be the ones that stands up for you, and may very well be the ones that mistreat you. I used to get in trouble for talking a lot. I got to know the principal very well, and I quickly was labeled a problem child. And this was from her going in school, and she, very talkative, and now she's an author. Look at it. Look at God. And, being labeled as a problem child, instead of identifying her skill set, we get labeled. And then when we get labeled, we tend to contort to that label. So this week, I want you to think of all the negative labels that have been placed on you, that people stuck on you: the problem child, the drunk, you will never make it, you suck, you're horrible, are you stupid, like all those, you can't do this. I've been labeled, and I don't want to cry. I've been labeled, and I release every label. And I went to my Father, just like that scripture in 1 Thessalonians. I went to my Father. I went to my God, and I asked him to label me with his purpose, with his will. And that is a label that I would accept. I would not accept the label of my family, unless it's a positive one. Positive labels I accept all day. People who reinforce positivity into my life. But the label that has kept you dormanted, the label that has kept you stuck, release those labels, okay? And unstuck yourself and rediscover who you are in God. That's my challenge for you this week. And I'm tearing up because I've been there. Okay? All right? Oh, this is going deep is it's tough, but it's needed because I'm realizing there's things that I still haven't healed from. Because these tears aren't just these are tears of joy and tears of sorrow all at the same time, because it's sorrow because it resonates with the pain that I've gone through and the labels that I've experienced. But then there's joy because I'm still here. You get what I'm saying? So release the labels this week. That's my challenge. All right? And I just realized on my outline, I didn't write the question down for what would the crew do, ask advice. So we'll pick that up next week. I'll answer that, the one that was emailed. But I will end the episode here with the quote of the week. Because, girl, the emotions. Oh, this is what opening up look like. Oh, my God. And it came out on camera. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so... But it's all good. This was good. Doing this podcast is therapeutic for me. And I'm happy to go deep with you guys. You know what I'm saying? I'm happy to be transparent with you. I'm happy to be vulnerable. I am sitting here super proud of myself to do this episode with you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. And let me just leave you with this quote of the week. It's from page 94 of the book, Believe Bigger. And it says, God's truth always trumps tradition. We just have to be willing to see old things in a new way and release what God is trying to reinvent. Okay, crew, go out there, release the labels that have been stuck on you. Trust in God that He is truth and He's going to trump those traditions that we've been taught to become the better version of ourselves. All right, crew. Thanks for hanging with the Crew Book Club podcast. I will see y'all right here next week. Hey.